Families of the school children killed in yesterday's deadly crash near Bronkhorstspruit will identify their remains this morning. 18 pupils and 2 adults were killed. 7 pupils who were saved from the wreckage are recovering in hospital. Our reporter Sikelelwa Mdingi is in KwaZulu at the Kwa-Mhlanga Hospital, where family members have gathered to identify their loved ones. Siki, good morning to you and thank you for joining us. A truly heart-wrenching moment as families wake up to identify their loved ones who died so unexpectedly. What's happening there as we speak?
Good morning, Mpho. Just a point of clarity first, just for our viewers. There was a bit of confusion exactly in terms of the location of Bronkhorstspruit. We are in Kwa-Mhlanga Hospital. Bronkhorstspruit is right at the border between Gauteng and Kwa-Mhlanga province. And yesterday, as those loved ones, as those victims of the accidents were rushed to some hospitals, this is one of the hospitals that some of those 7 victims were brought to. We do know that from yesterday's records, we do know that 2 of them were in a critical condition. But of course, it is at the same hospital, Mpho, that some of the deceased were brought. We do know that, of course, today, this morning, some of those families will start making their way here. It will be a tough task for those families, as we do know that that taxi exploded after that accident yesterday, and we have been informed that some of the bodies were badly burnt. We do know that when we spoke to MEC Sophie, the education MEC in Gauteng yesterday, saying that DNA might need to be used to identify some of those loved ones here. So it is a tough morning for those families, not only them, but of course our government systems, because those wheels will need to start turning, because it's not just the education department that is involved, because there are school children in uniform. We do know that the transport department will also need to be involved, because it was on our country's roads. And we can say that a tough time for the transport minister, who is getting a baptismal of fire in his first month on the job. He had a tough time with those bus strikes last week, the Easter Road accidents which he announced yesterday, and now this, where his department will need to show that it's taking a tough stance on the carnage that's happening on the road. And we also do know that the Department of Health is also on the forefront, just trying to assist those families and those in hospital, and the police, who are now busy with investigations, trying to figure out what exactly happened on that road yesterday afternoon.
Do we know at this stage if all the parents and families whose loved ones were affected know that their loved ones are no longer?
Yes, one of the things that the department did yesterday, the Gauteng Department of Education, they're quite swift in their reactions, and they're trying to make it public, trying to urge families that if you do know that your child uses scholar transport, try and get to the scene for that identification process. We do know that some of the media yesterday is showing quite painful images of families at the scene who are just trying to figure out what happened. But of course, even for those who made it to that graphic scene yesterday, Mpho, one of the challenges was the actual identification of their children, because of how the bus burnt, of how badly burnt those bodies were as well. Like in the lead in trying to ensure that South Africans got minute by minute information of what was happening there. Quite touching actually when he said the last time he saw so many bodies lying on the floor was at Ellis Park almost over 10 years ago. But those parents now today, they will meet here, and that process of exactly what happens next will take place. But we also do know that that process of using DNA to identify those loved ones means that some of those families might not know today if their loved ones are who their children are in that part of identifying all those people. But of course, there will be a close eye kept on those still the 7 that are still here today. Like I mentioned earlier on, that 2 of them were quite critical. So it is a long day, Mpho. Those news coming out just after 2 p.m. yesterday, and the community here still trying to get into grips, as well as the nation trying to get into grips with what happened on that road yesterday afternoon.